Call to order the meeting of Monday, October the 9th, and if the clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Here.
Councilmember Warden.
Here.
Mayor Rep.
Here, you have the minutes from the regular meeting of September the 25th. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Archibald, is there any additions or deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes stand as submitted. We do have one presentation on tonight's agenda. If the clerk would please read that.
City Manager James Freed and DDA Director Natalie Watson will give a presentation on downtown parking changes.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Rep and City Council members. My name is Natalie Watson, and I am DDA Director for the City of Port Huron. I'm here tonight to voice my support for the new downtown parking plan. As some of you may or may not know, I have been meeting with business owners, building owners, employees, and downtown loft residents over the past 6 months. As you can imagine, we have a lot of conversations and we cover a lot of topics. One that comes up repeatedly is parking and how it is a problem. And I can't speak for every single individual in the downtown, but I can confidently say that the majority would agree that there is an issue and they would like to see a solution to the problem. James and I met with over 20 downtown stakeholders on August 30th to discuss a potential parking plan. We had a very productive conversation. There was a lot of input from, again, downtown residents, business owners, building owners. A lot of questions were asked, a lot of questions were answered. By the end of the meeting, the group as a whole was in support of James's plan. So with that, I'd like to introduce City Manager James Freed to give further details on this proposed parking plan. Thank you.
I first and foremost want to say that I am very, very proud of the work that Natalie has been doing in our downtown. When we formed the downtown director's position, we knew that was going to be a critical hire, as in we didn't really have a good definition of the role of the downtown director, what would take shape. And I know Councilperson Ashford, you asked me some pretty hard-hitting questions, and I was like, I don't have the answers. And Natalie has done a phenomenal job of defining the role of the downtown director, creating those relationships. And those relationships have been critical to the success of implementing the goals and objectives that the mayor and council have set forth for us. In your 2017-2018 goal-setting session, you all asked the city manager and the administration to make downtown parking a priority. On February 13th, 2017, we had some downtown business owners show up to City Council with a petition wanting some changes to our downtown parking. Although I didn't agree completely with their proposal, it definitely highlighted that this was an issue that was at the forefront of our downtown. One of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to make the connections with the downtown. So Natalie, being the new downtown director, did a direct mail to all the buildings from Glenwood all the way down, I believe, to Griswold, of all the businesses, and direct mailed them and said, hey, I'm the new downtown director. I think we should get together and talk about what's going on in the downtown. And just like in the years of past, Sperry's became the center of downtown once again. Graciously, Sperry's Movie House made available their second floor dinner house to host essentially a morning coffee hour with the downtown business owners. And I want to talk about those downtown meetings which were held with the vast majority of downtown businesses in the downtown. The stakeholders, the people who are there every year, the employees, the loft dwellers, the business owners, those people who are there every single day who know what's going on. And those meetings were held on March 22nd was the first one. On May 31st was the second one. On June 20th was the third one. On July 13th, Ben Pionk, Nancy, our Parks and Recreation Director, and myself met to discuss enhancing the streetscapes. How do we get the flowers in for the summer and the fall? What can we do to make streetscapes better? And we talked in length about parking at that time. At 8:22, we held another meeting Natalie did with all the downtown business owners. And between 8:22 and 8:30, I sat down with Mayor Rep, and she says, it's important that we keep this on the forefront. And Mayor Rep recommended to me that we have a business roundtable. She said, let's pull all the business owners in and let's get this figured out. And so at Mayor Rep's recommendation, which I felt was excellent, we pulled all the stakeholders into the community. And if you look at that photo there, that is a business of our downtown roundtable. If you look at that photo, you see some of the key stakeholders. You see Mike Taylor, you see the Appleys, you see Larry Jones, you see Scott Beaton, you see the owners of Weekends. We have here a sign-in sheet of more than 25, 30 people, downtown business owners, who came to that roundtable to discuss parking. And I will email this out to you today. And so we took the findings from that, and on September 19th, I took it to the DDA, and on September 19th, I presented the parking proposal to the DDA to get their buy-in. And here's the meeting minutes that are available online for the DDA, which is a public meeting, published, anyone can come. And I sent you out a briefing that we're going to talk about tonight. One of the things I felt was critically important, and Councilman Warden, you brought this up on February 13th, which I thought was an excellent recommendation, was we need to have the business community at the table. And we took that to heart, and we sat down and we said, let's talk about parking and in downtown. If I get my first map put up, thank you, Jim. This is an overview of all the parking in downtown. And I had emailed this out to you sooner, about an hour ago, so you can look at it on your iPads. But in the gist, we have more than 5,000 parking spots in downtown Port Huron. 5,000. So it became clear that it's not that we don't have enough parking, it's that we don't have structure in our current parking operations. I mean, in those 5,000 parking spots that we have, it's kind of become like the Wild West.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you clarify for us the color-coded, because the legend is kind of...
Yeah, so there's some that are private, there's some that are public. I emailed you guys out that document so you can zoom in.
Got it.
And yeah, you can't read it on this one, so I got that. But I emailed those all out, and I'll put it online so people can take a look at
Okay.
it. Yep, absolutely. So we have 5,000 spots, and so really what we've realized is that downtown has become like the Wild West of parking. You have several competing interests. You have people who live in a loft, who have a different interest than somebody who is a waiter or a waitress at one of the many great restaurants downtown, which is also different than an office worker who works 8 to 5 in, say, an insurance company or a public institution downtown. So there are many different roles of what parking can play. And so the question becomes, they're just dumping cars everywhere. And on top of that, you sprinkle about 3,500 SC4 students on top of that. So you have the loft owners, you have the business owners, you have the employees, and then you have the SC4 students on top of that, all kind of just dumping their car first come, first serve. And so we said, well, we have enough parking, but when you have somebody who lives in a loft that parks in front of a business for 8 or 12 hours, that takes up that spot. Or if you have an office worker who parks in a spot for 8 to 5 and takes that spot up, it doesn't make it available for somebody who wants to grab coffee at Chef Shell's or grab some pulled pork at Fuel or grab a taco at Tio's. So that doesn't work out. And then for the people who work at these establishments, we wanted to keep those people on. We have fabulous restaurants and offices downtown, but it's a service industry-based economy. And socioeconomically, those people can't afford $300 parking passes. So whatever we did, we had to make sure that the employees and the people who work and use our downtown could find our new structure affordable. And that's key, because whatever new structure we would roll out, it would have to be affordable so that we could get their buy-in, so that they would participate in the program willingly. So if I can get the next slide, after meeting with all the downtown business owners, after meeting one-on-one with loft owners, with people who live in lofts, after having a lofty social with all the loft residents, and after numerous public meetings of roundtables, we came and proposed our plan with some refinery after the meeting with the business owners on, I believe it was August 30th. And what we have proposed is very, very simple. And that is a new permit system for city permit parking. And first we should talk about who can get a city permit. A city permit for permit parking spots will not be available for the general public. To buy a city permit, you will need to, one, produce proof of residency. Say, here I live in a loft, here's a utility bill, here's my driver's license, I live in a loft. Or two, you must produce proof that you work at one of the businesses. Here's a pay stub, here's a W-2, here's a letter from my employer, I work in one of these businesses. Or three, demonstrate that you own one of the businesses. To roll this program out, we are going to give these permits out at no cost for the first 6 months. That's because to roll it out, to get the structure in place, it's not about the money, it's about making the structure work. Afterwards, we will charge $50 annually, which is a lot less than the $300 we were charging for other lots in the city. And again, they will be purchased at the MOC. If we go back one slide to the map, I will show what this is going to look like. So with these new permit parking, we will in every public lot designate a certain amount of permit spots, which will only be for employees and loft people, loft residents. So for instance, in Majestic, there's about 24 designated spots there for loft dwellers and employees. In West Quay, there's about 70. In East Quay, we'll do about 34. And then over by the Fog Cutter, by Community Action Agency, we'll do about 14 to 16. We believe, based on past data, that the market for the permit structure is between 100 and 130, based on how many permits we used to issue before the McMorran construction got underway and several years ago. We believe the market depth is that deep. One of the things as well is we are working with the McMorran Authority. I presented with them once, and we believe that in the next coming months they will also come out with a special package for loft residents and business owners to purchase a parking lot in their north lot as well at an affordable rate. So essentially, now we have structure where you come, you get your permit, and you can park in these lots. What's key is, once we have structure, we have ability to enforce. So if you're an SC4 student who comes and dumps their car in the middle of the Majestic lot for 6 hours, you're going to get a ticket. Because right here, on the other side of McMorran, you have free parking available to SC4 students. More than 400 spaces for SC4 students for free. There's no reason why those cars are getting dumped through city lots, taking away spots from customers. If you're a loft owner, now you have a place where you can park, and a business owner or an employee, a place where you can park towards the backside of each lot that allows the front portions of all our lots to be available for customers. One of the things we felt was important, and this was after a conversation Mayor Rep and I had with one of the prominent loft developers downtown, was, hey, you know, as a loft resident, I'm okay with parking a little bit further away from my loft as long as I can just drop off my groceries. And so at the recommendation of Mayor Rep, after several meetings with developers, we installed drop-off loading zones. There's a loading zone on Superior, and there's a loading zone in the Majestic lot, and we will install one in the East Quay lot in the coming weeks. So essentially, if you're a loft resident, you can pull into a loading zone, a parking spot that's 10-minute parking, take your groceries up, unload your car, and then take your car back out to the long-term parking. Additionally, the Council on Aging has more than 100 employees who right now have no place to park. This permit system will provide them a place to park, providing 100 additional spots for our downtown consumers. And what this is focused on is taking a realistic approach that we want to make downtown parking readily and accessibly available to not only the residents, to the employees, and to the owners, but most importantly, to the consumers and those who are spending money in our businesses, making our downtown viable. So this is a very simple approach. And I presented this to the businesses, and they said, you know, we're concerned. One business owner brought up, I don't like the 2-hour parking. And I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, I don't like the 2-hour parking. I have a small petition here I started to get rid of 2-hour parking. And I said, okay, well, this is downtown Port Huron, and as far as I'm concerned, we do what the business owners want us to do. And the downtown business owners are the ones that originally established 2-hour parking through the Main Street program. The Main Street program surveyed their members, and they said, we want 2-hour parking on the Main Street and in the parking lots so that people who work or live and own a business downtown don't come out in the middle of my business and leave their car on Main Street for 8 hours, which is what was happening. So the 2-hour parking was originally brought to the city from the business community. So, based on the recommendations of the council and Councilman Warden, your recommendation on the 13th of February, we went back to the business owners and said, okay, if 2-hour parking, let's first and foremost talk about 2-hour parking. Does that model still work? Changes happen. Things happen. And the consensus of the business community was say, hey, things have happened in our downtown, such as Sperry's Movie House, which is a $11 million economic draw. People come with their families and they watch a movie for 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and they want to go downtown and get dessert afterwards. Well, if you only have 2-hour parking, that hinders that type of experience. And so based on the experience of the business community and their clientele, they said, we would like to see the 2-hour parking move to 3-hour parking. And if we move to 3-hour parking, that'll allow more of our consumers to spend more time downtown shopping, having dinner, having an experience in downtown rather than rushing to beat the clock. And we said, okay, so we agree that the permit system, if we deploy the permit system, you will work with your employees, with your residents and your businesses to ensure that those long-term parking needs are established in the permanent parking areas, which will allow for alleviated parking for consumers in the 2-hour spots, which we will move to 3 hours to accommodate your customers. Now, for the customers who are going to be there for 4 or 5 hours, McMorran has 2 lots that the first hour is free towards the front, and then it's $1 afterwards. So we can accommodate those customers as well. So by making these simple changes, which is very simple, but the reason why it's simple is because we took direction from our business community who knows their industry best. We will allow a type of parking spot for every type of consumer, the residents, the employees, the business owners, those people who are there for 2 or 3 hours having dinner and a movie, and then those who are there long term. We've accomplished all of that. Now, what we'll do is in our rollout is we'll begin making these changes in the next couple weeks. In fact, productions for the sign changes are already underway. We will begin hanging the 3-hour sign change as soon as we issue the traffic control orders, which I will sign probably next week. We will begin changing the signage, and then we will begin restriping certain spots in each lot for permit parking with a sign for permit parking, and then we will allow, we're going to direct mail every business and every property owner in the downtown and essentially say, please offer your residents and your employees to come to City Hall and pick up their free permit so that we can roll this program out at no cost to the workers. And the reason, again, why that's important, this is not about the money. We're not here for a money grab. We're not here to make money. What we want to do is create structure, and we need employee buy-in and residents buy-in on this program. And so we anticipate a 3 to 5 week rollout of this program. Once we believe that the residents and the business owners and the employees have been properly communicated, once we believe that the signage is properly installed, that the parking spaces are properly identified, and that people have had an opportunity to come in and get their parking permits, then we will begin enforcement. And so for the employees and the business owners who don't park in the permit parking, and they're there longer than 3 hours, they will get a ticket. For the SC4 student who doesn't want to park in the free parking and instead chooses to dump their car downtown in a spot meant for a consumer, they will get a ticket. And enforcement will be strong in 4 to 5 weeks from now. But for the first couple weeks, we want a period to get this thing off the ground. So that's essentially our parking plan, our parking changes. And again, this is driven not by your government. This has not been driven by my office or Natalie's. This is really the business community coming to us saying these are changes that we feel need to be made. Here's what's important. This is a trial. We're going to deploy this, and then we're going to do the 6 months free passes. Then in another 6 months, we're going to send out the bills for $50, and we're going to try this for a year. And let's see how this works. I fully anticipate in 12 months bringing you back a report to document how this is working, what changes need to be made to ensure continuous improvements to this program, and then maybe maybe it doesn't work at all and we need to start back to the drawing board. But what is clear is that we cannot continue to ignore this problem, that some type of structure needs to be put in place. And so we will roll this program out again in 3 to 5 weeks, enforcement in 4 to 6, and then in 6 months we will issue the paid permits for $50. That way, and this is the important part, I don't believe it's fair to go to a waiter or a waitress who makes minimum wage and tips and say, hey, you need cash or you're not going to be able to park tomorrow. That's not fair. We want to be realistic and understanding of our needs of our users down there. And so by giving them a 6 months heads up, that allows them to financially prepare to buy the $50 permit in 6 months. That $50 permit fee that we raise will go towards maintaining those parking lots and, if need be, offsetting any financial loss the McMorran Authority has for reducing their parking to participate in the program. And we'll firm that up in the next couple weeks when we meet with the McMorran Authority. At this time, I'll take any questions if you have them. I will PDF these documents, but again, I want to run through the documents real quick. I have your stated goals and objectives that you directed the administration to pursue this. We have the February 13th council meeting, which I have the notes and minutes where our business community spoke. Many of you spoke saying, let's bring the business owners to the table. We have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 meetings, roundtables with our downtown stakeholders. We have our sign-in sheet with more than 30 business communities who reviewed the plan, many who are here tonight to support this plan. And I hope you all come up at public comment to share your input and thoughts on this. We have our DDA minutes that were published. All of our DDA meetings are public and online, so we talk about them so the community can come to our DDA, hear what we're talking about the DDA. And then we also have our online communications, which I've been briefing you on this program all along the way. And so I appreciate the business community who brought this to our attention. I appreciate Mark from Chef Shells, who really brought this to the forefront. He was right to bring it to our attention. I appreciate Councilman Wharton for you as well, asking us to bring the business owners to the table. I truly appreciate Mayor Rep for encouraging us to hold the roundtables, where we were able to gain that fruitful insight on how to implement meaningful change. And that's what you have before us here. So I'll take any questions you may have.
I'll open it up for council members.
Mayor,
Yes.
James, could you clarify, you talked about business owners and lofters and whatnot being able to get a free pass. Is that limited to those who are willing to pay after? Or can everybody get a free pass and then turn it in at the end of the 6 months and not buy one later?
So they could do that, but then they're going to get tickets heavily enforced if they're not parking in the permit places, the permit spots with a permit. So for those people who don't get a permit, and in 6 months they don't renew, and they're parked in the middle of Majestic lot for 4 or 5 hours during their shift, there's a high probability they're going to get a parking ticket for $20. And after a couple parking tickets over a year, it's going to make a lot of sense to get a permit. And so we are not going to go strong on enforcement until we feel that we have given adequate and fair amount of time for these people to get their permits. And one of the reasons why we so strongly sought out business input and direction, not only from the business owners and the employees and the residents, is because we knew that if we were going to go strong on enforcement, they had to have a seat at the table. And I believe we have accomplished that goal.
Other questions from council?
Mayor Up.
Councilmember Warden.
James, can you, can you give me, and I didn't get your email because I printed off and I don't bring that in, but I'll get it later. The number of anticipated ones for each one of those red lots, how many spaces, you went over, I didn't have a chance to kind of go through, like Majestic, there's a line there. How many of the red are you anticipating? I think you said 70 in the Zebra or the Quay Street one. How many in the Quay East?
In total, we believe creating between 130 and 150 parking spots. We haven't firmed up the number yet. Well, that will dictate based on permits needed. And we're basing that information off, Councilman Ward, we're basing that data off of many years of parking permit data that the city used to have.
Oh, I'm just saying on this, the red line, like Council on Aging, there's a little space right there, and the Quay Street
between
East
those,
lot.
About 100 between those two lots.
And in for the red on this Quay Street East?
Correct. The East Quay Street, probably 30 to 40 there.
That's just on the outside, the east edge, roughly?
That's where it's demonstrating it, but we may have to go deeper in.
Is it 30, roughly?
30 to 40. But
Okay.
we will probably go deeper in as we have 19 additional lofts being currently constructed, and we anticipate higher demand in the future.
And then Majestic, roughly how many did you say for Majestic?
Probably between 17 and 24.
17 to 24. So I have a question on the street parking. Currently, it's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Is that going to still remain the same?
Correct.
And
Well, the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., what we will look at is taking that to a later time, because the dinner crowds on the weekends and in the evenings. So that 6 p.m., we'll probably take that closer to 10 or 11.
And that's going to have to be a 3-hour time limit where they're going to mark the tires?
Correct.
So, and then how about on Saturday and Sunday? Still
Correct.
no enforcement on that?
No, there will be 3-hour.
So you're going to change the streets?
Correct.
Did everybody in the feedback, did they say okay to that?
So what you're seeing in the downtown is our typical cycle of a downtown is the usage between a weekend and now a Saturday, or between a Monday, a Tuesday evening, afternoon and evening, and a Saturday and a Friday night. They're very similar because the demand in downtown has grown so much with the new businesses. You have different people there, but the demand is the same. So on a Monday through Friday, you'll have a couple hundred people who are down there working in offices or going down there for lunch. And then on the weekends, you'll have those different crowd. You'll have, instead of being office workers, you'll have people who are coming into downtown to experience downtown. And so the crowds may change, but the demands will still be there.
So basically, so you're changing it to 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday?
Correct. And what's also important to note, Councilman Warden, is if you're asking me, do I have this down to a fine science? Your answer is no, because we're going to have to try this and see how it works. If we get 6 months into this and it needs tweaking, we will be more than prepared to make those changes to make it work. And so foreshadowing some issues in the future on the weekend parking could happen. I don't deny that. But we're going to have to watch and see because we don't know what it's going to look like.
Okay, yeah, so my feedback is, again, I appreciate us starting something, some type of program. I do appreciate having, reaching out to the business owners or building owners and getting some feedback on this. It's starting something that's going to be a work in progress. I don't see anything on the south side there for any red for anybody on the south side of the river there. And I just think those 70 plus 14 plus, there's going to be some people that are still going to have to use the other lots and then have to constantly shuttle now that you're putting it on the Saturday and up to 10 o'clock. So I think it's something to make sure we monitor.
Councilman Ward, you highlighted an excellent point. And that is on the south side, what's not shown there on the street is the on-street 3-hour parking. There's significant on-street parking on the south side. But one of the things we struggle with is a parking lot on the south side. It is a priority of the Downtown Development Authority to acquire land south of the bridge to build a parking lot. And we are in current negotiations and discussions with some property owners who have talked about, yeah, we may be interested in selling a chunk of our land, we may be interested in selling a building. We really do want to build a public parking lot because we got rid of the Desmond parking lot a long time ago when it wasn't needed. But now that the demand has crept up, we are in short order. If there was, the argument can be made, is there a parking shortage downtown on the north side of the bridge? I'm not sure that's a fair statement. On the south side of the bridge, I think there's a credible argument to say we need an additional parking lot on the south side of the bridge, specifically behind 4th Street by 4th and Water Street there. It's tight now. Just imagine when we get a vibrant City Flats hotel open in a year, what that's going to do to the parking situation. So we have a year to figure out what we're going to do down there. And so I appreciate you pointing that out because that is going to be an issue of concern, and you're right to point that out.
The other comment, question is, so if somebody's a resident, works in one of the businesses or business owner, or even potentially a building owner, I don't know, I didn't hear that, but they're going to be able to apply for a pass to be, or are they going to be able to pick which lot they have permit use?
Excellent point. A city permit will get you in any city permit spot in any lot, excluding McMorran, which will be a separate pass, so they have a different parking system. So if you're an employee who works at TO's or you're a loft resident closer to the McMorran pass, it may be better for you to go to McMorran and purchase one of their discounted passes for their lot, because they have a gate system there, and their parking passes are different.
Okay, again, I'm just thinking of
Yep,
what I've
absolutely.
heard and living down there and breathing it. My suggestion, I guess, at least maybe they might have talked about it at the round table, I don't know. But if somebody does participate in this, I look at it as it might be a chance for those people who work there, who live there, actually, hey, I got a spot now, I'm going to pay for this, I know where I have to be, but if all of a sudden that's full and then they got to walk 4 blocks away because it got full from other permit users, you know, I don't know if that's feasible in the future or not.
So you
I
bring
don't
up a
know.
good point. We will not be guaranteeing a spot in a certain lot. And again, it's because the demand stays the same, but the crowd changes. So for instance, when you have several hundred business owners coming into work at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning to work in office buildings, you also have several hundred loft residents leaving to work at that same time. And then in the evening, when around 4 or 5, when those office workers close up and go home, those loft residents are closing up and go home. So there's an ecosystem there of traffic moving in and traffic moving out. The demand stays relatively the same, but the clientele changes greatly based on the time of day when you're out there.
And if somebody parks somewhere in the street after the hours, there's no issue?
No.
After 10?
10 or 11, we'll work with the businesses to decide what that firm is going to be, but there will be ticket if they stay there afterwards. And that's for a snow removal.
No, I'm
issue.
talking if it's not snow removal, like regular summer, if the things are enforced from 8 to 10, it's going from 8 to 6, now it's going to 8 to 10.
Yeah.
After 10 till 8 in the morning, they're okay.
Enforcement will probably be light that time of night for parking downtown.
Well, it shouldn't be, there won't be any enforcement, would there?
If parking is from 8 to
8
11 o'clock.
a.m. to 11 o'clock, from 11
We can
p.m.
look at, we can look
Right
at
now
doing that
it's free,
seasonally. Right
there's no
now, it'll
enforcement.
be all year round. We can look at doing that seasonally. But right now, it'll be all year round. You have to have your cars off the main street by 11 o'clock at night.
Off Main Street?
Correct.
Oh, my gosh.
Well,
And
that's
if
not what
nobody
it says
parking.
now.
That's nuts.
What is it right now?
It's just that they
Till
enforce
10.
it between
Yeah.
Sorry.
the hours.
I don't
Yeah.
think-
We can look at that.
Yeah,
I don't have
I
it's
think
just a
we
matter of enforcing it.
Yeah,
that's
it's
all.
a to be quite frank, Scott, Councilman Warner, we don't
Yeah.
enforce it at night on the street.
Yeah, I
We
don't think you should. I think you
No.
should leave it open.
If you've had too much to drink, leave your car all night. We're good.
Well, and if they park, I don't think it needs to be, there's no competition out there for that, I think, and then as long as they get moved out in the morning,
Yep.
you know.
We don't
Okay.
enforce at night like that.
All right, thank you.
Other questions from council? Councilmember Harris.
Mayor Rep, my biggest question is the sweet spot with the West Quay parking lot for the college students. Have we thought about anything in the future? We're going to try and shift the demographics a little bit on that, and if our demographics numbers don't show up with our residents and workers downtown, will we be thinking at the end of 6 months for the college to fill in those $50 spots?
So I think, I understand your question, but I actually believe the demand by downtown employees and workers is so great that will be one of the first spots filled.
I hope so.
Right now, we're having an issue with people who work downtown who have no place else but to park, but in regular customer parking, because the SC4 students are dropping their cars for long periods of time. And the SC4 students, who are probably the most able-bodied to walk, have free parking available. And so we can look at that. I don't anticipate that being an issue. I think that parking is in high demand.
Yeah, well, I hope I'm wrong, but I think that, and I hope that our city employees will use that, but it's kind of a crapshoot in Port Huron for somebody to walk two blocks to park, and I don't know if we can change that or not, so.
Well, and you bring up an excellent point. If you look at all of these public parking spots, we have 5,000 parking spots within literally 4 or 5 blocks. So even if you park out in West Quay and have to walk to Sperry's to your shift, that's not far at all compared to other communities, not far at all. We're very blessed.
Other questions? Well, I just would like to thank you and Natalie for facilitating the roundtables and coming to a conclusion to see that we can address this whole issue, and not saying it's guaranteed this is going to work, but it's certainly a step forward, and thank you very much.
We really appreciate Madam Mayor and the council you gave us time to figure this out right. You adopted this in your goal session last, I believe, January, and we were able to take our time to do it properly. We didn't want any knee-jerk reaction. To have 6 or 7 roundtable meetings with downtown business owners, that helps. And so we appreciate you allowing the administration to have the time to do this right. And Councilman Warden, I appreciate your comments on the February 13th meeting, encouraging us to meet with those business owners as well. You were correct. It helped us out.
Thank you. We will move on to public hearings. Number 1.
Is to hear comments on the application of Autonautics Incorporated, 2407 16th Street for an industrial facilities exemption certificate for 12 years on real property. Following the hearing, council will consider a resolution to approve the application.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address public hearing number 1? Me. I thought so. You're pretty close to the microphone.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City council members, city manager. My name is Bruce Seymour, and I am the manager of Business and Community Services with the Economic Development Alliance of St. Clair County. Tonight, we have a business who is expanding here in Port Huron. Very pleased to have with me Max Andrew Weiner with Autoendonics. He's going to talk about the expansion that the company is doing. This is a two-part expansion where it's affecting the company that's there, also a startup company that that Autoendonics is launching. So Max Andrew, why don't you talk about both companies, please?
Hi, good evening. As I said, my name is Max Andrew Wiener. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of Autoendonics Incorporated. I'm just going to take a minute to give you an overview of who we are, what we produce, and what we are in the process of doing. Autoendonics is a company that was started in 1979 on 24th Street, right across from the hospital. It was a company started as a metal finishing company supplying automotive parts, anodizing, basically making vehicle trim, shiny metal trim on cars. The company had some difficult times in the 1980s. In 1987, the company was on the verge of shuttering, was on the verge of bankruptcy. My father came down, took the company over with a purchase agreement, purchased the company, and subsequently turned it around. The company has now been operating for 30 years and we've been happy to be members of the community. Basically, what we did with our company, in order to change the direction, my father incorporated a philosophy of hands-on management and focused on innovation and quality. Again, the automotive industry is one of a lot of volatility. I don't need to tell you, it's a very cutthroat, very competitive business. So what we focused on is constantly trying to develop new products, trying to look forward as to what we would need to stay in the business. What we're seeing right now in the industry, especially in the last few years, is tremendous competition, tremendous pressure from overseas. We're dealing with a tremendous push from low-cost countries, China, Mexico, as well as automation from Europe. So what we did is made a conscious decision. In the last year and a half, we saw tremendous pressure in specific programs that we're dealing with to shift work away from the United States, pushing it into China, and what we decided to do was change the products that we're offering. We are still sticking to our core business, but what we are doing is preparing automotive parts. We're doing metal finishing. And what we decided was we would need to vertically integrate our process, incorporating more of the preparation of the material. So what we did, we made the decision to bring in automation, robotics for the prep, the buffing. What that is to say is the big three, as they were moving products overseas, the arguments were, again, low-cost labor, and there was also the dual aspect of several OEMs from Europe where purchasing was pushing them to potentially open up more business in North America, but the argument against was the quality departments were arguing that the quality wasn't, was subpar in the U.S. Again, it's the game that's played in the automotive industry. So what we did, we looked at our business and we made the decision to expand it. We expanded Autoendonics, put a $1 million investment into the facility, into the building, building new shipping docks, expanding out the building, and I don't need to tell you we had a very aggressive timeline. It seems like yesterday where we were just in here going for the city permits. We made a conscious decision to source locally. In fact, thanks to our local contractor, Body Construction, we're able to push this fairly aggressive timeline. And what we have now is we've expanded, upgraded our current facility, and incorporated a new business within. So as I said, we expanded the building with the facility with $1 million in investment in the facility itself, and then incorporated $700,000 in equipment upgrades. We brought in custom state-of-the-art equipment, machinery that basically is bar none the best in the world, so that, as I said, we can vertically integrate our processes. What we have now, we've basically been able to kind of stem some of the flow of product overseas. We've gotten resounding positive feedback. So for Autoendonics itself, we're able to retain a number of business that was on the way, going on the wayside, as well as our new business, RoboBuff, is in the process of expanding, and again, taking on business that was going not only to low-cost countries, but now we've been able to open up quote opportunities from various OEMs. In fact, we just had a meeting with BMW. Prior to making the decision to make the investment, they basically said a whole series of quote packages would be opened up if this style of equipment was available. So what we have now, as I said, Autoendonics expanded. RoboBuff, the expansion is in place, the equipment is in place. We've just made our first 4 hires of new employees. We expect, hopefully within the first quarter of next year, we should be up to 8 to 10 people. And the way we constructed this facility, the way we expanded our operation, is with the idea that hopefully this entails further growth. So we actually set up a framework that we can add additional equipment as things proceed along. As I said, we've been happy to be part of this community for 30 years. This is a difficult business to be in at times, but like I said, we keep trying to look forward. And now, with this expansion, we expect to be here and continue to grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max Andrew. So, let's go into a little bit of a description or explanations here. The reason that Autoendonics is the applicant for the tax abatement today is that, as it's outlined in Public Act 198 of 1974, is that the entity that pays the tax is the applicant for the tax abatement. So, this is actually covering 2 projects, although all that's on the application is Autoendonics information because that's what's required by the state. But as Max Andrew also pointed out, the new company, RoboBuff, has invested $700,000 and is planning to hire 8 to 10 people. What's before you here on this application is for the $1 million expansion that Autoendonics has done. The tax abatement request is on the new expansion only. The city is not giving up any existing tax revenue. This is just foregoing 50% of the future revenues on this expansion only. What the company is guaranteeing that they will do is to retain 8 employees, which would have otherwise gone overseas, as Max Andrew explained earlier. The company is requesting a 12-year tax abatement from the City of Port Huron, and that would be a 50% abatement, which is outlined in Public Act 198. Is there any questions? I know this one's a little bit different than normal.
Thank you, Bruce. Is there anybody on council that has a question? Yes, Mayor Pro
Okay,
Tem.
yeah, I understand. So the Public Act, it makes reference to we can't do this legally, correct?
That is
You have
correct.
existing, okay?
Absolutely.
And how many employees do you have existing in the,
We have 30-plus employees at Autonautics.
oh, okay. And then this will be plus the other 4 you have, and then the foreseeable future, you'll have 8, correct?
Yeah, so basically, this is retention at Autonautics, and then the new business is hiring as well. So it's basically a double
hit.
benefit.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I have a quick question. Sir, could you speak to the scalability of your model? You talked about the future growth. How has this expansion affected your scalability in the future?
So, basically, and to get into the specifics, I mean, I'd be more than happy to
Nothing proprietary.
take you through the facility. But basically, what we're doing is we're preparing automotive parts. I mean, I run everything from roof rails on Cadillacs and Lexus to door trim on Durangos and international truck. Basically, you name that type of vehicle, and we've got some kind of parts out there on it. What we basically had to deal with is the preparation work. We don't actually form the parts, we're just doing the finishing. We're the last stop before the assembly line. Unfortunately, the preparation work, because it wasn't in our hands, there were issues with supply, and so a lot of the larger vertically integrated houses out in Mexico and China were making the pitch to the OEMs that they have captive supply.
The bat production on top of it.
Yes. So this not only allows us to control that, but also allows us to control the overall quality and what's coming in. As I was saying to you before, one of the big bookends against some work coming over to North America is because there's always this pitch where the Japanese suppliers, the German suppliers like to pretend that only their work is superior. This kind of cuts out that middleman. We control the entirety of the full preparation of material, so this lets us produce a much higher quality product. The equipment that we put in place is custom designed. It's the best you're going to find in the world at the moment for what we're doing. In terms of scalability, I mean, we've already opened up a tremendous amount of quote opportunities that weren't available prior to that equipment. So what we're hoping to do right now is pull some more work over from German OEMs. Again, I mean, we've been doing this for over 30 years, and again, this is opening up some definite opportunities.
So the 8 to 12 jobs you're going to hire, what kind of skill level is that?
I mean, this is robot operation, as well as there's supply, there's inspection of material, as well as robot operators. So
Do you
there's some
train in-house?
programming. I train in-house, yeah.
So I would just highly recommend, so we have one of our communities, one of our points of pride is we're a recovery community. We have a lot of people who struggle with addictions who have come here and recovered, and they're looking to get their lives back on the right track, and they have a lot of really valuable skill set, hard workers who are looking for a second chance. And I would encourage your organization to look at some of those members of our recovery community who are looking to jumpstart their lives and make a start for themselves. Mayor and council, this goes along with our previous exemptions that we've offered several other companies for similar operations for the value added. We're seeing in our industrial park there's a lot of need for the value added. We recently approved a exemption for U.S. Fairthane, and they produce a lot of equipment and expansion to add leather onto a door trim as a value added that the tier 1 and the suppliers are demanding. So this fits very well into the previous exemptions you have given under other industries in our industrial park for that value added process and scalability. Thank you for your answers.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mayor Rep?
Councilmember Warden.
First, I want to say thank you very much, as a business owner stepping up, and I thought I might have attended a previous planning commission meeting where you guys went and asked potentially, I don't know if this was the site or not, about the addition with the bays. The question I have, just reading through the 50% abatement is for the $1 million that was put in for the expansion,
That's correct.
and it's 50% over a period of 12,
That is correct.
okay?
By statute, it's 50%, and then the local jurisdictions can grant up to 12 years.
Okay. Now, I just had a question, I think it's the third paragraph down, it just says, in this resolution here, just says, whereas the hearing, the applicant, the assessor, and a representative affecting the taxing units were given written notice and were afforded the opportunity to be heard on this application, and it's for tonight. I just thought I'd ask, are you representing the city in this matter, Mr. Seymour, or who's the, reading that part of it, what was done from our city assessor side on this?
The clerk sends notices out. She can explain that.
Yes, when he dropped off the application to us, we figure out which meeting it can go to, allowing at least 10-day notice to the different taxing organizations, the city assessor, Downtown Development Authority, the school district, the community college, RISA, the county board of commissioners were all notified.
Okay, so it just says they're all notified in a timely manner
Right,
in
and they
advance
have
of
the
this?
option of attending, we notify them of this public hearing. So if they wanted to come and speak, they could.
Did they have was there any feedback at all from any of them?
No.
Okay, thanks. So anyway, again, I appreciate your investment in the city of Port Huron and expansion. Again, these type of things are to help with that, to draw that investment, to have it stay here. I kind of know the characteristics of it to where, this is a common practice, and I appreciate you guys expanding here in Port Huron.
Thank you. Thank you for your investment.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move forward with the motion, please, to, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't close the public audience. I guess we've been, public hearing. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll declare the hearing closed, and now I will ask for a resolution, or a motion to approve.
So move.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Ashford. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Harris. If there's no further discussion, we will take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all. You're welcome. Now is the time for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council at this time, please come forward and give us your name, and you do have 4 minutes.
Larry Jones, downtown Port Huron, Mayor Rep, City Council. I want to thank Natalie and James for all the work that they've done on this. Natalie made a statement that this was James's plan. I really kind of want to differ on that because I've been to some of the meetings and heard all the input from all the community, and so it's more of a community plan. I know they put the final part of it together, but I think there was enough input. Some of it I disagreed with, and a lot of it I did agree with. It's something you've heard me talk about parking for the last 5-6 years, and it is so wonderful that people are talking about it. Is this where we're going to be? No. We're going to keep revising this as we have been revising, our downtown parking. 6 years ago, nobody realized that Port Huron would be back to where it is today, and I feel we've only lit a match. It's the enthusiasm, the excitement around our community is great. As I said, today was great, tomorrow's going to be better. But at the same time, it's kind of like what he pointed out, all the little red areas where it's going to be permit parking. As we discussed in these meetings, is kind of, if we want to look at Menards, the big corporate people that put so much more money and thought into these things. If you drive out to Menards, there's blue parking stripes over in the corner where all the employees have to park. If the employee parks anywhere else, they get written up and they could lose their job. So it's too bad that we have to enforce, employees, loft owners to park where they really know they should park, because the reason why they live in a downtown is because of the coolness of the walking community. We just had Art Hop on Friday night, and, a group of us walked all around, on both sides of the bridge. And, you meet friends, you meet people you haven't seen in months, and you chit-chat and you see what the stores have got today that they didn't have a month ago. And so that's the uniqueness of being downtown, working downtown. And as you've heard me say, if you don't want to walk, then you shouldn't come downtown. And I say that, because we want everybody downtown, because people want to be downtown. If we go down to if I go to Clarkston, it was like the last time I was over there, they told us that we had to wait 2 hours at the woodshed for dinner, and we had to walk, almost 5 blocks to get there. And, we didn't think nothing of it. It was just, it was fantastic. So, as Steve Witt told me here, I don't know, a couple of months ago, he said, Larry, isn't it great that we have stuff going on in our downtown today that is worth walking to? And it's the same way with the lofts. If you have a loft downtown, it's worth walking to. But at that said, we have employees that are working downtown. We have residents that are working downtown. Because the nature of habit, over the years, they've been able to park anywhere they wanted to, so they keep that in mind. So they're taking up those parking spots, those prime parking spots that are for our guests, our customers that come into town. So, once we force them, there'll be that learning, there'll be that time period where they get upset, and they're all, they don't want to, have to walk, a block or a half a block or 2 blocks. But at the same time, they're going to get over that. They're going to realize how many more people visit our town, how much more money comes to our town, how many more people come in the restaurant, which brings tips to the waitresses, how much happier they are. And, and they will realize that, hey, why didn't I park, way over there and give my customers those prime parking spots, years ago? So I want to say thank you. I think it's a great step. I don't think there's probably enough parking spots, that are going to be available for permits.
I hate to cut
But-
you off, but your 4 minutes is up.
Okay.
So you can wrap it up.
One other thing, is I really welcome a taxi service to come in, because I think there's an opportunity for somebody to be able to call and say, pick me up at the door, drop me off at my car. So there's enough people in our downtown that's going to make that available. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council this evening?
Annette Mercatant, St. Clair County, Michigan. I live in Wales Center. I'm also the health officer of the health department. I'm speaking on the ordinance for recovery houses, in support of that ordinance. You may have heard me say this, and I want to emphasize that Port Huron appears to be the epicenter of our heroin problem, even statewide. Now, why is that? I don't think anyone in this community can really say. But we do know word on the street, as well as word from community service organizations, is that this is a community that has recovery housing available and attracts people from all over to come. I would liken this in a state of debilitation from chronic illness if you were offering statewide free insulin to diabetics. with absolutely no support services that allow them to recover from their disease. So with a weak recovery system that we have currently, it's kind of an invitation for chaos. But with a strong recovery system, we have the opportunity to be a beacon of life and hope for those who really want to recover. And I believe that this is the intention and the purpose of this ordinance. It is the beginning of creating a balance between homeowners and people who live here and have the right to live here in peace and safety, and for those who are seeking recovery. It is the beginning of looking at that transparency and data that we need to know what we're really talking about, because at this point, we don't even understand who's here and who's not and what services they get. And certainly, it's the beginning of requiring licensure and standards of care that make sure that those who come here get at least the standard of care that we know works for people who are seeking recovery. The message should be that if you come to Port Huron for recovery, you're going to come here and get the best services that are obtainable. But if you don't want to come to Port Huron for recovery and you're going to come here to use and to facilitate chaos, then you're not welcome. And I believe that this ordinance, in good faith, has created some of that balance. It is the beginning, and I realize it's not perfect. I realize that we have to make compromises. But I do want to say that it is a great start for this community to be a beacon of hope instead of the chaos that it seems to be becoming. And I'll leave with just saying that we don't want to let perfection be the enemy of good. And this is a good ordinance, and I encourage you to vote for it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the council this evening?
Good evening. My name is Bill Brown. I'm a city resident. Madam Mayor Rep, Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, distinguished city council members, and City Manager Freed. We've looked a little further into some of the questions the city council had at the last meeting. The cost of a special use permit is $400 per location. The permit can only be obtained after applying a minimum of 30 days before the next Planning Commission meeting. We are unclear if the inspection of property is during the waiting period for the application to be reviewed or afterwards. Is it approved then, or does it go to the next City Planning Commission meeting for another reading, and then to the City Council for 2 readings? It appears that the special use permit could take 2 to 5 months to obtain. This information was gathered from the Port Huron City website. We would ask that the application fee be waived as an undue burden. After a conversation with Jim Hoyt, Regulation Officer, State of Michigan Licensing Section, we discovered that the prevention license required by the city can only be obtained after having obtained the special use permit from the local municipality. The cost of the prevention license is $500 per location per year. After making an application, it will take 30 to 90 days for the license to be approved. To repeat, state licensing can only take place after a special use permit is obtained for our city. Regarding the number of recovery residences, the total number of houses that would fall under the auspices of this ordinance is 16. 8 Vision Quest houses after reconfiguration, 2 Odyssey houses after the second is allowed to open, and 2 Sacred Heart homes. This does not include any of the assisted living homes, which are typically mothers with children. There are 4 additional homes currently operating, which will probably close after the passage of this ordinance. We have gathered this information from owners of the houses, knowledge of the recovery community, and a conversation with a person who recently managed Sacred Heart's Clearview housing. To conclude, detox and rehabilitation centers do not in any way, shape, or form solve the problem. They are a part of the continuum, but the support that recovery residences provide is just as important. These residences are very important to many people for long-term recovery, as there they relearn the skills of becoming a productive member of the community. An important question to ponder is this: while we work our way through the licensing process, where do you place the people coming out of detox or rehabilitation centers, or from the jail, the Huron House, and etc.? Finally, as it stands, it will be impossible for recovery residences to come into compliance within 60 days after the passing of the ordinance, as previously indicated by the city. It appears that it will take 6 to 9 months as a minimal time frame. Is Vision Quest going to be allowed to get back up and running so it can take in newcomers? Or has this ordinance been put forward to put the recovery houses out of business, as it appears to me and many of us in the recovery community. Please, lift the cease and desist order on Vision Quest, which has been in place since May 18th. As a tax-paying resident of this city, I believe the ordinance, as it stands right now, is immoral, xenophobic, and discriminatory, and I fear litigious. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the council this evening?
Madam Mayor Rep, Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, esteemed council members, and City Manager Freed, my name is Sharon Mikesell, and I am a resident of this fine city of Port Huron. I'm also a woman in long-term recovery, which means that I have not used alcohol or any mind or mood-altering drugs for more than 13 years. I am committed to recovery because it has given me and my family new purpose and hope for the future, while helping me gain stability in my life. I am now speaking out because long-term recovery has helped me change my life for the better, and I want to make it possible for others to do the same. As you may recall, the last time that we met here was on September 25th. I remember it well because it was my 55th birthday. For me, it was a wonderful day as I officially stepped into the rank of senior citizenship, gratefully looking younger than my age. Thank you. By the way, as our last few visits I have asked you to use your imaginations, I will assure you that now you can let your imagination rest for a bit, as I am only sharing facts with you tonight. September 25th started in a beautiful way, reading greetings from friends, breakfast with the man of my dreams, and yet so not so far away, but unbeknownst to me, a young man, his children, and loved ones were having a day that was just the opposite. This young man was struggling with addiction. He had recently gotten out of Sacred Heart. While there, he called and asked to come to Vision Quest, but was turned away. When he got out, he called again to Vision Quest and was denied again because of the cease and desist order. On the morning of September 25th, as our day started, his life ended. While we were enjoying lunch and conversation, his loved ones were finding out that they would never hear his voice or his laugh again. While we sat in this council meeting for the first reading of an ordinance that will deny entrance to 2/3 of the people outside our area, his children had their first fatherless night. It's been almost 5 months now. 5 months of people trying to get into Vision Quest, and some of them dying when they can't. 5 months of families suffering as they watch their loved ones get turned away. For almost 5 months now, we have waited and asked, hoped and prayed, and yet the cease and desist order remained, and people continued to die. From the looks of it, the ordinance will make more families suffer as the long, expensive process of bringing recovery homes into compliance with this new law is undertaken. I am here tonight to ask, no, to beg, please, 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 can we at least give these homes the same leeway that they have given us? Vision Quest has followed what you asked and cooperated in the process. Can they and the other recovery homes be given a 5-month period, please, to continue and return to helping people as they come into compliance? In honor of this young man and his family, I ask that we would please drop Vision Quest cease and desist order immediately as we pass this ordinance and open the doors again for people to recover. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address City Council this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. While you ponder that more difficult issue, I just wanted to express my support for the parking program that Mr. Freed and Natalie have helped us all put together. It is a shining light that we have some problems that are good problems to have, and the cooperation of large groups of people that work together to solve them. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone involved in that. And that as a business owner, as an employee, as a property owner downtown, we look forward to resolving that situation.
Thank you. Would you just, for the record, give us your name? and-
Sorry, my name is Emily Wallace, Mosher's Jewelers.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Bobby Umbright, and I'm a long-time resident of Port Huron. I am also a person in recovery, and the recovery community in Port Huron has been instrumental in saving my life, specifically the recovering housing. Recovering housing is exactly what I needed, and I've tried many times to recover living in my own place and never succeeded. Since living in a recovery home in Port Huron, I have been able to thrive. Recovery in Port Huron is a true blessing to many people. Without it, many people, possibly even myself, would not be alive today. I would like to address the ordinance regarding sober living homes, paragraph 5, concerning residents that have been convicted of certain crimes. I believe this is discrimination. When someone outside of Port Huron wants to move here or buy a house here, the city of Port Huron does not do a criminal background check. I don't believe it is the city's place to enforce such discrimination. If this is the case, then the whole city should be under this ordinance, not just the recovering community. In paragraph 6, concerning 2/3 of the beds must be reserved for Port Huron or St. Clair County residents. Normally, when someone goes into recovery, it is suggested that they move to a different community than they were previously in. And I have seen this work for many people. As I stated before, Port Huron's recovering community has saved my life, and I would love to be able to share this with anyone from any area. This is truly a matter of life and death. This ordinance, as it states, is a threat to the recovery house that I am currently in. It will probably certainly close down within the next 60 days, leaving me nowhere to go. I've spoke with Vision Quest, but they cannot give me an answer because of this ordinance and how it states. So, as a recovering person from Port Huron, I may have nowhere to live if you pass this tonight. This is truly a matter of life and death. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the city council this evening?
Good evening, council and administrators. My name is Sharon Bender. I live on South Boulevard since 1981. I've been a resident of the city. And I am here to express my disagreement with the enactment of this ordinance on behalf of sober living homes, and to request, once again, that it not be enacted. And on a very happy note, I would like to commend Tony George and Nancy Windsor's staff for the beautiful Air Force Band concert this past Saturday. You were very much out of it if you did not attend and enjoy. It was just a pleasure. And I would encourage you and all of the people who are listening, who are members of Town Hall or the Symphony. There's another one coming in November, the Army. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the audience, address the council this evening? I've got us some reversed.
I'll address both.
Okay, there you go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to touch base on Scott Beeden with Sperry's Movie House. Dialogue and communication always seems to be the thing that we lack, or we get slapped in the face with that we don't do. And I got to tell you, Natalie and City Manager James Freed have done just the opposite. They have kept a constant communication dialogue open. This is one that can get emotional. You have business owners that have been set in their ways. You have building owners that have been set in their ways, and then you start to throw in a new economy in the start of a thriving downtown, and it creates a different chaos. 5, 6 years ago, we talked about we had much more bigger problems than worrying about parking. So it's refreshing to say that this has come to the forefront of our discussions of problems for downtown is trying to figure that out. It's just a refreshing time to be part of downtown Port Huron. And I want folks to understand that are either here tonight or are watching on TV, This is a council, and I think a city management and leadership that does care, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, they literally are a phone call away, and they are responsive, and they are listening. So I've heard from other developers that are looking in downtown, you got a parking problem, Scott, how do you fill out, how do I get people to my place? We're working on it, and I think the key that I heard tonight is the same as I've heard before in these meetings, is this is a trial. I think we're going to come back in 6 months and a year from now, and we're going to have different cool problems to solve that revolve around parking. But I'm refreshed to know that we're starting with a step forward with what we've got proposed tonight. I fully support James's efforts on this. I certainly appreciate both James and Natalie's efforts to get the community together and start having that conversation. I would encourage that the business owners and the building owners of downtown Port Huron get to some of these meetings, because we do have a good support, we have a good foundation started, we have many, many more building owners that are out there and business owners that need to be involved too. So I welcome them, and I want them to be aware that it's a great time to be in downtown, and they need to understand what's going on and help where they can help on this situation. And I just wanted to say, I think we've preached the stars are aligned, and now's the right time to come and invest in Port Huron, and I just want to continue that sentiment that I appreciate all the efforts that the council's taken and James and his leadership team have. So thank you.
Thank you.
Might as well sneak in one more for good measure, right?
Right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Taylor. I own both Tio Gordo's and Fuel Wood Fire Grill. Again, came tonight to show support for the city manager and Natalie's parking plan. I got the email saying on August 30th we were going to have a meeting with business owners that discussed parking, and I figured, hey, even if we didn't come up with a solution, it should be entertaining enough. Watching a bunch of business owners, get around a table and try and figure out a solution to our parking issue. But I was actually pleasantly surprised from the very get-go that there was a very thought-out and a very, strategic plan of how to address this without automatically introducing or reintroducing paid parking to the downtown, as our guests continually, decisively tell us that's not what they want. And I guess for me, the biggest thing that I've preached to my employees over the past couple of years is, unfortunately, I don't have enough control over what my neighboring businesses do, over what the loft residents do, over what the SC4 students do. And my biggest challenge as a business owner has always been standing in front of my employees and saying, hey, we want to park and leave the most accessible spaces for our guests. And as they're walking the 2 blocks over to the restaurant, they watch the employee from the business next door or the loft resident who lives in the building next door take up the space that they just left available for a guest to come into one of our restaurants. And so I really like the sentiment that the city manager made at the beginning of the meeting tonight. There are probably still going to be issues with this system. Yes, there are going to be people who are upset because I just went and did my job and I got a parking ticket for doing it. I'm sure there's going to be some growing pains in the process. But if nothing more, this at least provides structure. College students have a place to park. Employees and residents of downtown have a place to park. And most importantly, the most accessible and available spaces near all of our businesses are for guests to come down to our city and have a place to park. And so I'll kind of leave it at that, but I do appreciate the hard work. I do appreciate the concern to the council. And like Scott said from Sperry's, I mean, what a cool problem to have. We have so many people interested in our downtown that we have to fight over parking spaces. And I think the best way that we can do it is at least try and put some structure to it, see how it works, revisit it, and appreciate the ability to be informed and a part of the process.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, gentlemen and ladies of the council, Mr. Freed. My name is Robert Crosby. I'm a resident downtown and also a business owner. And I do want to echo a lot of things that were said tonight about parking. I think that it's a very critical issue, and I really do appreciate everything that Mr. Freed has done and Natalie has done to kind of bring that together. I represent the Cliff Dweller that James so kindly referred to, resident. I live downtown, and my life involves more of the evening and then after hours. And so just in that parking plan, when it comes together, don't forget, a lot of people leave. The Crickets and me, we exist. There's probably 10 other cars out there, so I like the idea that enforcement hours should exist. I don't think we should change the times, though, that are out there. We already have 10 o'clock designated certain areas, other areas are designated, and it hasn't been a problem. It's only a problem, I think, when it's not being utilized properly. So as a resident locally, I would just encourage that consideration, and I think echoing Mr. Councilmember Warden's words, looking at the enforcement hours, I think would be critical too, and not having people displaced. My only fear where I live, and Mike, I didn't take that nice parking spot, that wasn't me. Maybe one time. And the loft next door, and it wasn't me, but maybe a couple of times. But there's always opportunities to have parking after hours. What I worry about when the snow ordinance kicks in, we're gonna lose a lot of parking spaces, and so maybe the permit parking might become more critical if we can find different times. But I think everything else is great. I look forward to the new plan. I'll pay all day long for a permit. I think it's a great symbiotic relationship between the businesses and the loft residents and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Cruz. I came here to Port Huron from elsewhere to a recovery house here. And like Bobby said, I just want to say that I believe it saved my life, and I think that I needed a change of environment. And I love Port Huron now. And I think that I understand the sentiment and the reasoning for the ordinance, but I don't think it's entirely fair. Because I think that I could be an asset to this community, and I think a lot of recovering people could also be an asset to this community, and I think that really needs to be considered, just the lives that can be saved and, what recovering people have to offer.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the City Council this evening? Seeing no one, I'll declare public comment closed. Move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Archibald. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz will take the vote.
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Warden.
I would like to remove number 2, ordinance 17-015, second reading and enactment for the sober living ordinance off of the consent agenda.
Okay. We will take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. The items that were just adopted was confirming and approving single lot special assessment for cost of an emergency board up of a structure at 1713 Jenks Street, confirmed and approved single lot special assessments for special trash pickup in the right-of-way, confirmed and approved single lot special assessments for fines, assessments, and/or cost of removing blight, blighting factors, and/or causes of blight, as well as the abatement of nuisances, and a second reading and enactment of an ordinance to amend the solid waste and recycling portion of the Code of Ordinances for the purpose of eliminating the annual permit fee and vehicle inspection requirements for solid waste haulers. Which brings us then to, from the city manager, number 1.
Is accepting the bid from Village Ford in the amount of $16,032.20 for a rebuilt engine for a 2009 two-yard dump truck used by the Parks and Forestry Division.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Archibald. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, you have a summary attachment to the purchase as well. Essentially, the engine blew. This is still a viable truck. Our city staff went through it and deems that this is worthy of investment. Instead of buying a new truck, we're just going to buy the engine. We put it out for bid, wanting to meet specifications, they put it on Mitten, so
Thank you.
stuff happens.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford.
How much would a new dump truck be?
Lenny, why don't you come and answer that?
Oh, you gonna let him answer?
Yeah, I'll let him answer that one. I think it's right around 65,000.
I thought you said you was gonna let him
I'm
answer.
ballparking it based on the memo.
I knew that.
A new
And
dump truck
don't
would cost
deno
about
what he said.
$65,000.
Is he right or is he not? Is he right, Lenny?
I'm sorry?
Is he right, correct?
Yes,
in
he's
that
correct.
65,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're talking 65,000 for a new one, and we're trying to rebuild it for 16,000.
Yes, ma'am. The
Okay, and
engine-
how much
engine-
mileage will we get out of that? Will we be in good condition?
Well, the mileage is not as important as the hours.
Oh, no, I meant that in a different term. How much life are we gonna get out of this rebuilt? If we did,
The current vehicle is a 2009, so it's 8 years old.
oh, okay.
And we would anticipate another 8 to 10 years before we'd have to replace this vehicle. If we had to replace the entire, the cab, we looked at a cab and a chassis, and that was another 24 to 35,000
Oh,
in
okay.
addition to the engine. So, but we anticipate that the cab and chassis will be able to last at least for the life of the new engine.
Oh, okay, thank
Otherwise,
you.
we'd say, no, we need to buy a new one, which
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? from
Mayor Rep?
anybody? Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, this is a rebuilt engine, is what you quoted out here, and is this our engine being sent down for them to rebuild it? The pieces that are not, or are we purchasing just some other rebuilt engine? It's the first question. And then the follow-up question is, how much is actually just purchasing a new engine and putting it in this 2009? I don't see that information in here, so I thought maybe you can,
this is a rebuilt engine, 16,000. I don't have the price for a new engine. It's,
I love a brand new truck.
I'm not
The
sure
reason
we'd
why I
buy
just-
a brand new engine.
what's that?
I'm not sure we'd want to buy a brand new engine. Then we're talking at least half the value of the vehicle. This is a big engine. 16,000 is for a rebuilt engine, but it's going to have a warranty, so.
So a brand-new truck, engine and all, 65 grand.
Yes, sir.
A rebuilt engine, 16 grand, keeping the same cab and chassis.
Yes, sir.
It's just a new engine, putting it in our same cab and chassis, because we're keeping it anyway. That's the dollar amount. I was just looking for the difference, because you buy a new one, you know it's there. A rebuilt engine, I can tell you,
It doesn't seem to be a good bet to put a brand-new engine in an 8-year-old vehicle. Seriously. No, I don't have the price for a new engine because, frankly, I'm not sure we'd want to put a brand-new engine into an 8-year-old vehicle.
if it was 20 grand? I'm just asking, I didn't see it here, and I just was wondering, 16,000 for a rebuilt engine, it's not ours, we're buying somebody else that rebuilt an engine. We're not sending ours down for them to rebuild ours.
Correct.
That we know about what's wrong with it. And a rebuilt engine, in the past, my youth, my experience, we purchased a rebuilt engine for a car, sounded like a great deal, and it didn't last as long, I can tell you, on the engine. So I just thought, for the dollar amount there for 16 grand, what was that next hurdle point? And I wish we had that information.
Lenny, you spoke of a warranty. Can you speak in more depth what kind of warranty this comes with?
Oh, it'll be a 1-year warranty.
1-year warranty?
Right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Mayor Rep?
Yes.
I get,
Councilmember Harris.
my biggest question here, besides the $16,000 for a rebuilt engine, is, I know we went to this M deal or something when we're shopping for the engine or thing like that, and I just wondered, we have a lot of heavy-duty garages in the area, like from Hill's Garage, and I know there's some other big repair places and stuff in St. Clair County, and I just wondered if we entertained any thoughts of a RFP from them to see if we could cut some costs a little bit. Maybe I'm just astounded by the price today for this vehicle, but I just wonder if there was any thought to entertaining some of the heavy-duty mechanics that we have in the area with their access to these products before we jump in to spend $16,000 on a used engine. Do we have that time, James?
Can you speak to your bidding process before you went to My Mitten? Before you went to My Mitten, how did you bid this?
We actually went to a number of other locations to try and find a better engine, or we looked at the cost of a used cab and chassis to replace the entire vehicle. And that was going to be, like I said, about $35,000 for a truck with over 60,000 miles. This particular vehicle has only 38,000 miles. And we feel that the cab and chassis, even though we just finished the bed, that's the reason it went in, because it was rusting. We replaced it with brand new rebuild, and now the engine blew. So instead of putting another 30, 40,000 into it, we felt that the most economical solution was to buy this rebuild engine to keep the vehicle going.
And buying the engine through a Ford, we were able to get a core return on our current engine, correct? That's not been factored into the cost.
That's correct. We went through Mitten. We actually got a quote for a rebuild engine. It didn't meet our specifications. We went through Mitten, and we tried to get it bid. We only received one bid back, and that was from Village Ford, but it was through Mitten, and we feel that's probably the best deal we're going to get for this particular vehicle.
Madam Mayor and Council, one of the things we talked about in purchasing is our current engine has a core value, the engine itself. We will send that in for evaluation. It could be up to $3,000 off the purchase price. Now, we can't hope that we'll get all $3,000, but until they send that core in and have it evaluated, we don't know what we'll get. So $16,000 is our maximum exposure. We do expect some type of core refund, up to $3,000. Thank you, Lenny.
Any other questions?
Just one follow-up, that if we did, I would appreciate in the future, I think we did it with the fire truck as well. I just asked about maybe looking at finding or what a price would be for a replacement engine. And something like this for a rebuild, I would like to see even follow up after what the price would be for a new engine purchase, not a rebuilt one. And of course, I would assume we'd have that core salvage value no matter what we did. We'd just send in the old engine back, right? So I just trying to the financial side on this thing, and I would appreciate that in the future.
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Ruiz.
I appreciate the fact that they're timing this so that we look at a rebuild engine. It looks like it will be a successful bid for us, that it times out so that it matches up with the amount of time we expect to get from that dump truck. It looks like a good match. It looks like you've done your homework in terms of you're getting perhaps $3,000 off of that. Again, it looks like it's a good move. It's much better than buying a $65,000. And for me personally, a new engine in a truck that old just doesn't seem to match. It looks like we'd end up with a new an inch rather than a total truck. And I will be voting for it, this bid.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, we will take the vote.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
No.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. We'll move on to resolutions. Number 1, please.
Is authorizing 17 payments.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Councilmember Archibald and Mayor Pro Tem Ashford. Is there discussion?
Bills, bills.
We will take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. Resolution number 2.
Is approving the contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation for rehabilitation of the 10th Street Bridge and authorizing a local match of $121,300.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz. I wonder if we could have just a little explanation of what they're going to be doing to the 10th Street Bridge. Before I open it up for questions, please.
Madam Mayor, Council, every 2 years in the state of Michigan, all the bridges are inspected. We inspect our bridges every 2 years, and as you may recall, 2 years ago, we inspected the 10th Street Bridge and found that it had a number of deficiencies. Deficiencies sufficient for us to put weight limits on that particular bridge. Now, they weren't very severe weight limits, but they were limits nonetheless because there were, certain cracks and certain materials that needed to be replaced. And every 15 to 20 years, the bridges, especially these bascule movable bridges, need to be completely refurbished. This was last done about 15 years ago, and it's time to do this again. The state of Michigan, the Michigan Department of Transportation, takes responsibility for the rehabilitation. In fact, they're the ones that do the contracting, and all they ask is a 5% match from the local community, and that is what we've been asked to provide. In this particular case, the state will be conducting this work this winter. The work will begin January 2nd and will proceed through the end of April. We have to be finished by the 1st of May. Because it's done in the winter, because that will limit the amount of traffic that's being prohibited on the river itself, it's done in the winter. It has to be encapsulated, and the bridge needs to be heated in order to be worked on, and it has to be painted also. That's one of the major costs, is repainting the bridge. For the months of January through the end of March, the bridge will be kept down, so there will be no passage of traffic. However, the Coast Guard requires that we keep the bridge operational for boat traffic starting in the month of April. But the month of April, they'll still be working on the bridge, so at that point, we anticipate the bridge will actually be raised and kept open. In both cases, it will be closed to vehicular traffic, but in the month of April, it will be open to boat traffic. And it needs to be finished by the end of April, so for those 4 months, there will be a detour from 10th Street back over to 7th and Military.
Thank you. Is there questions from council?
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Warden.
you said every 2 years we do an evaluation. When's the last time we had to do this for that bridge?
We inspected it 2 years ago,
I mean, when did we have to do this total rehab? Do you know?
15 years ago.
Okay.
It was done in 2002.
So I think it's just absolutely outstanding. One of the best things about Port Huron is our broad drawbridges, and to have federal aid 95%, $2.3 million, and us only coming up with $121,000, I definitely appreciate that ratio. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I have one question for Lenny. Lenny, we've talked about, we do ice breaking in the springtime, and you'll work with MDOT to ensure that we are able to get our icebreaker through. About March or April is when we typically run the icebreaker through, and my concern was if that bridge was stuck down, we'll flood out Mike Taylor's house, and so I wanted to make sure that we get the icebreaker through. You'll work with MDOT for that?
Absolutely.
This is $2.4 million for the rehab. How old is that bridge? Did you happen to get a price on a new bridge?
No,
You're really trying to put him on the spot, aren't you?
Sorry, just curious.
I think your questions are over. We will take the vote.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Resolution number 3, please.
Is approving the appointment of Councilmember Harris to serve as the city's representative on the Blue Water Community Action Agency Board.
Is there,
Was requested by Mayor Rep.
sorry, I cut you off.
It's okay.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Support. Oh, did somebody say support?
No.
Oh,
You.
support.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there any discussion?
I'd just like to congratulate you on your foresight in making that appointment. I think he's always out there in the community, and he might as well make it legal here a little bit more. He'll be all over the place, so watch out, Community Action Agency. Yeah, you'd be a good addition.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Just same piggyback that. I think it'd be great. Councilmember Harris is very active and very conscientious and attends, and it'll be great to have him involved in this, so thank you.
I think you'll make a good representative.
Hey, Rep, could I make a comment?
You can.
I got some big shoes to fill.
Oh, who's you feeling?
Sherry's.
I wasn't on the board.
She got paid to be there.
Right. Thank you.
But, no, it's a privilege, and I sit on and watched a lot of the city charter meetings with the head of the department there and the Blue Water Community Action Group, and I think it's a very formidable group, and Look forward to it. Thank you.
Very nice. Yes, Councilman.
Clarify, Mr. Harris is taking over as a representative for the council, but he's not taking Sherry's old job?
No.
I thought he was going to try to wear her high heels. He said he would wear her shoes. Okay.
We will take the vote before it gets crazy.
It's almost 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Councilmember Warden,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz,
Yes.
Mayor Rupp.
Yes. Ordinance number 2, please.
It is being given its second reading and enactment. It is an ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning, Article 1 in general, and Article 3 district regulations, Sections 52-5, 52-223, and 52-478 for the purpose of creating a reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act to allow sober living homes, also known as three-quarter houses, after special approval in an R1, known as a single and two-family residential district, and M1, known as a light industrial district, subject to restrictions that properly balance the interests of other city residents.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb. Before I open it for discussion, I guess I would like to ask the city manager if he would address the point that was brought up during public audience about the time it would take to get a permit.
Yeah, absolutely. You are correct that the permit fee will be about $400 for a special use permit. It is because it is labor intensive to go through the process put forth here, the validation of residents and how their procedures will work. $400 on operations that gross north of $500,000 is a very reasonable cost of doing business. We have said from the outright that we will not go around shutting down recovery homes. We're going to work with them in a plan of action to become compliant. However long that takes, if it takes time for the license of the state, we will work with them on a reasonable timeline. My heart breaks to hear the story about your friend. However, sober homes are not for those who are actively using substances. Those who are currently addicted and have substance abuse problems do not go to recovery homes. So Vision Quest could not have helped your friend. A detox or treatment facility is what we need to have in this community, and that's something that we're working on. And so we are working on getting a continuum of care built so that we can have a discussion on what do we do with those who need immediate assistance, those who need treatment, and then those who need the long-term secondary care of a recovery home. But we will work with those recovery homes to help them come into compliance, those who are willing to do it. I do anticipate that a few bad actors out there will not want to comply with these rules. But overall, groups like Vision Quest and Sacred Heart and Odyssey House are good actors who we believe will run good operations, and we are confident we can work with them to ensure their stability.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford.
I'd just like to make one oversight. I was taking some notes here when Sharon, if I could call you by your first name, when she spoke, her friend that she spoke of wasn't he was in recovery. He wasn't using, he was waiting to get into somewhere, so.
I was referring to this one with the overdose.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, I stand with.
He was clean when he called.
He was clean, I thought. Those are my notes, not unless I took them off. I just wanted to make that clear. Yeah, that we're listening. You're welcome.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes. Councilmember Archibald.
I would just like to say thank you for, I mean, this has been a very long process, and I appreciate you coming forward and all of your concerns. And I understand that you have concerns, and it isn't perfect. As Dr. Mercantile said, it's a good ordinance. It's not perfect. It's probably never going to get perfect, and we could be forever trying to get it that way. And so my concern is delaying this any further, as we had spoken in the past. The more we delay it, the more we have people who can't get in. And the longer we have to work with people to try to get licensed, and both here and through the state. So while we're listening and we hear you, and we do expect that over time, as we said in the Planning Commission, that this may change, I do think it is the right thing to move forward now and at least get something in place so that we can lift the cease and desist, and we can start moving forward and get people in the recovery homes and take care of them.
Thank you. Other discussion, comments?
Madam Mayor, I would just point out that the cease and desist order, we never shut down Vision Quest. We never kicked out one resident of Vision Quest. We allowed them to operate as long as they were communicating and working with us. To be quite frank, Vision Quest had over more than 80 residents. and several homes that were not equipped to handle that load. They were overpopulated. It was not safe, did not meet the International Building Code for safe living, and so we never kicked one resident out. We allowed all 80 residents to stay and allowed the natural attrition to bring those back down to safer housing levels. And we will work with Vision Quest going forward, but I think it's a false statement to say that we cease and desist and force Vision Quest to close. We, in fact, did not do that because our letter that we stated said, if you work with us, we will help you come into compliance. And we have spent the last 6 months doing just that. Not one resident of Vision Quest was kicked out. Not one.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford.
Mayor, can we have Todd Chowdy just speak to the cease and desist? You know, this the significance of that. You keep hearing it, you know, even though we may know, just put it back out there so we'll know what we're talking, what we're saying here.
Yes, absolutely. I keep hearing the word 6 months, and the first letter that we sent to Vision Quest was actually right around May 18th. So we're talking 4.5 months ago is when the first letter went out. And what we did in the cease and desist order is, you have to remember, recovery homes in their current form are not allowed under our ordinances. So the recovery homes were in violation of the ordinances, and when that came to our attention, we sent a letter saying, don't violate our ordinances anymore, and come and meet with us, and let's work on a way to bring you into compliance. And that's what really started the ball rolling towards, okay, what is your current model? What is our current ordinances? The reaction from the recovery community was to change their homes for the worse, take all the things out of it that work well, just so they could comply with our ordinances. So what we asked them to do was, don't take anyone new in, and they agreed to that. And I believe that meeting where they agreed to that was, I believe, the 1st of July, so it was 3 months ago. So we've only had an agreement with them that they would not bring in new residents, and that has been applied for 3 months. During that time, we did make an exception when a hardship case was brought to our attention to allow another resident to go in. So the cease and desist, as City Manager Freed indicated, we didn't stop them from operating. We allowed them to continue to operate. And what we did is we then spent the next month and a half working very hard to come up with a good ordinance. And then over the next month and a half, it's basically been in this legislative process.
Okay.
The other thing I would add is there is, I think, some confusion in the public. When we go through this process for an ordinance, this is legislation. So if it's a zoning change, it goes to the Planning Commission, and then it comes to City Council for 2 readings. And that necessarily takes some time, in this case, about a month and a half. When somebody goes to the Planning Commission for a special use, that's something different, and that is a Planning Commission meeting in most cases.
And just lastly, when the young lady, I was listening to her, you know, if they should happen to, and probably if Annette is still out there in the audience, you know, we'll be in a position, I know that's probably not in our lane, but Annette, you'll be in a position to help in a transitional state if something like this should happen. If you don't have anywhere to go, will something be in the making to make that transition?
Yeah,
if something should happen to happen?
Basically, the circumstance that was described is something that at some point in time in that process, the person needed to get into a inpatient or detox or residential facility. And that's something, you know, that's not the job of government to create and run.
Yep.
And it's something that leaving, you know, private industries and not-for-profits to create, they haven't done that at this point in time in the city of Port Huron. Mr. Freed is working hard and at a very accelerated time frame, and I'll let him speak to this, to try to assist the process and jumpstart the process and get such a facility in the city. And that would be the type of facility that somebody who is in that condition would need to go to on an emergency basis, either a hospital or that type of facility. So we don't have that facility in the city at this point in time. We do have a hospital, but we don't have the residential facility, and that's something Mr. Freed is working on and, locating. And right now, he's in discussions with some entities that, could do something very nice for our community. So-
Okay, I think I got it wrong. I knew that piece. I'm not talking about the detox and that. I meant if a person was currently in the facility right now, the current state, right? They're in the facility, and if something unfortunate happened that house or home have to close, is there anything in place for them? We just don't worry about it, or they just become homeless, or
Well,
what?
if somebody is in a sober living house right now, and that entity chooses to close down or doesn't get a special use permit, there are other sober living homes in the community which we hope will fill that. And of course, we're not the only city that has sober living homes.
That was my point. We're not the only city in the surrounding
And-
area, okay?
And right now, I heard that, during public comment, that there is a threat that maybe a couple may shut down. While this process has been going on, we're getting the exact opposite effect. We have a handful that have come forward and said they want to create one, including one, that runs, excellent programs elsewhere and is, highly regarded in the industry. So we will have, I'm confident we'll have those homes
Sufficient.
available in the city, and the way we've proportioned the ratios, we'll have beds available for city residents.
Okay, good. Oh, okay. Well, that gives, some hope there. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you so much, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could follow up on what Todd mentioned about the continuum of care. As you all received notice, I've put together a advisory focus group on matters of recovery. That includes members of the recovery community, those who are service providers who essentially run treatment facilities, run recovery homes. So you have the boots on the ground, the life experience. We've also brought in the clinical aspect of the Director of Region 10, Jim Johnson, the Director of Mental Health, Deb Johnson, the Director of Community Health, Dr. Annette Mercantat, and a whole host of others, prosecutors and judges who will sit on that advisory group. It is our goal to have a facility up and operational within 6 to 12 months in the city of Port Huron. There are service providers out there who know what they're doing and who just need a facility and a funding mechanism to make it happen. And so I'm hopeful that by bringing the clergy, the service providers, the industry leaders, the boots on the ground experience all to the table, we can expedite at a much more rapid pace the deployment of a detox and treatment facility in our community. And I am hopeful about that. I had meetings with Jim Johnson this week, and he told me at lunch, he said, I don't know any other community that is doing what you're doing, that has an advisory group of all these different stakeholders being driven by, essentially the local government trying to get this done. A lot of communities are fighting these facilities. We recognize we need them. And so I'm pretty hopeful about that. And I think when we're finished, our continuum of care model will be something that is duplicated across the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor Rep?
Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, just to follow up on the last meeting we had, I had some questions that I kind of, sometimes long-winded, but I had some questions and concerns that I put on there, and I haven't heard anything back on some of them, so I wanted to ask again. Questions and concerns I had last meeting was, number one, I asked, with these new requirements of their background, what is the process to handle somebody who might currently be in one of these programs in our home, in a home in Port Huron, that now will not qualify because of some of the background requirements that are now put in place under the wording in this ordinance? I kind of brought that up as a concern, and now I haven't heard. I want to hear what are we going to do with somebody who might have one of those criminal or something, but they're already in the program, they've been there in recovery. What happens to them? I've not heard anything of how we're going to handle that, and what is the process? So I'd like to have that answered if we can.
Sure, yeah. Basically, at this point, with any new ordinance, there is a time period to adjust to implementing all the the changes that we've made. As I see it, that type of situation that you described would be something that would be addressed as part of the special use permit application, which would take place fairly soon after this ordinance is passed. And we recognize, as Mr. Freed indicated, that it may take longer than 2 months to get everything taken care of and get addressed. So the plan Mr. Freed had, which I think is a good one, is that at this initial stage, we would have entities enter into a work agreement where they would we'd identify the issues that they have to address and give them a period of time to address it. So you may have somebody throughout that whole process, to answer your question, let's say they don't comply, well, that's probably going to get them several months to find another location at that point.
So the business entity currently has 6 people in there, 5 people in recovery, active recovery for a year, 2 years. These people are doing well. They now are going to apply under this new one to get a special use permit, fill out all this details, and then they have to check off a box, ask the background of the people who are already successfully on recovery, and they turn out that some of them do not qualify on some of those issues that now disqualify the whole home. What is the process for that?
As I just indicated.
What happens to people? What happens?
I just indicated that, Mr. Warden.
Said that.
What they would do is they would have to enter into a work agreement where they have X amount of time to come into compliance. So it wouldn't be day one, they're gone.
So they don't have to kick that person out? They can continue on because they're on a good, safe path? They're in recovery?
That's a decision that would be made by the Planning Commission.
By the City of Port Huron Planning Commission?
Correct.
Okay, that was a concern, just what happens to that person, others in the household with that. Another thing is just, I brought it up last time as well, nothing's perfect. Again, to get something like this started, but on just a regular business practice for, just risk management, evaluation, due diligence, I did bring up, and I had some concerns that I haven't heard back in the time frame. Just kind of, how are we going to, I haven't heard it yet, initially try to notify or identify some of the homes that may not just come forward? How intrusive, or what's the process of the city going to do by sending out some of these things? I haven't heard. Or what are the resources or training for our city employees to be trained? Something like this is a much more complicated manner. And then what is the cost? How many people are going to be allocated? What's the time frame for us to get up and running, to get our staff capable of handling this delicate new approaching homeowners or people in there and saying, hey, you're running one of these, you're not compliant, or you are, and what happens if it's wrong? What if it's unintentional, that actually they weren't doing that? What is where the city was wrong in that issue? Just the process and protocol, I just, unintended intrusion, and, what happens when the allegation is wrong to a homeowner or to somebody that has a residence that now is, I guess I haven't heard that part of this process of how we're going to address this before we enact this program. And the other thing I have is just for undertaking this, I brought it up last time, what is the overall financial budget for looking at what we're going to have to at least do to project this implementation, and have we thought about the ramifications of what is this potentially going to cost, and then worst case scenario, how much is it going to cost, and what are we going to need? I know we're going to have to do this over and over and constantly tweak it, but I haven't heard a starting point yet. So those are some questions that maybe wasn't as clear last time, but I did have those concerns.
Councilman Warden, I'll answer that question. So when it comes to the internal operating procedures in the planning department, we already have a pretty good system in place for identifying suspect rentals and suspect recovery homes. Our staff has begun identifying suspect properties that we believe are recovery homes. Many of them have been validated by the providers themselves, said, yes, in fact, we are running a recovery home there. This is very similar to how we identify suspected underground rentals in areas in which they shouldn't be, or boarding homes. And so we have processes and procedures to which we sent out a letter essentially saying, hey, we believe that this is going on. Can you share with us what the current operation and status of your property is? And we will identify and model our suspected recovery homes in the same manner which we do our suspected rentals and boarding homes. As it comes for costs, again, as I spoke previously, they will pay a fee to go before the special use permit, and that's a scalable. If we have 5 recovery homes, they will pay the fee to have their due process done and their application revealed. If we have 100 recovery homes, they will pay the fee to have their application. So it's scalable. So if we need more resources, they will provide the revenue to provide those resources. And so for some of those questions on detailed budget projections, we simply can't provide that until we get a better grasp on how deep the market is. And until we start addressing the suspected rentals, meeting with service providers, provide them a path to come out of the shadows. Right now, we don't have an ordinance in place, so they're operating legally underground, and they have no incentive to be forthright with us on what they're doing. We're hopeful that with this new ordinance and a path to become legal and a path to become above water and operate in the daylight, that we can get a better understanding of this issue. So we will provide briefings to you, Councilman Warden, and to the rest of the mayor and council as well, as we progress on what this looks like, and in 6 months, we can share a status update with you.
So you don't have any of these numbers?
Well, I don't
Any
want to
ideas?
sit here and just pretend like I do when it's impossible to know that.
Okay, so that's just, again, a concern going into a business, new venture, new ground for the city of Port Huron. I really, again, from a financial perspective and just evaluation, I think we really should have taken a look at that as well, along with this process of.
How would you
legal
propose
wording.
doing that?
Any type of financial stratification, any probability, figuring it out, some of these issues, but, you know, it's
How
not
would
it's
you,
not just
how
a
would you
set-
propose, what kind of model should I deploy? Because I guess if you want me to do that, what would you recommend? How would you recommend I do that?
Your anticipated number of current workforce that's going to be there, the time involved to train them, and some type of an estimated amount of not only to go inspect and implement this, but also to go and enforce it one way or the other. Like to see you do that for other things. I'd like to see that in some fashion presented. The additional potential cost of litigation or fight on this thing, if we cross the line on some of this stuff, I think we need to make sure that we're addressing that issue as well.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
We'll move on. Is there any other comments?
Mayor Rep, I
Yes,
would like to make a
Councilmember
comment. Thank you very much for all your hard work, because it's very obvious that it's very detailed. It looks very sound to me. I have a medical background, and policies and guidelines are good, and this looks like a good beginning for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Rep, I hate to
Mayor Pro
prolong.
Tem Ashford.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, I would just like to say, we're dealing with human beings. This isn't a regular business. I don't call human beings business, and I'm not looking for any strategic, but I am looking for that structure that you have put together, and we're not trying to send a message that they don't count. They are very much included, and that's why we're trying to get some structure and get some data points and things to start off from, and then you can put that with that. There's different types of businesses, and I don't want to even go through that. But I just don't want you to forget the bottom line. We're dealing with people. These are people, real people that count.
Yeah, and if I might comment on that, if you look at our ordinance, the vast majority of the things that we have in the ordinance are designed to protect the individuals that are going into
Absolutely.
the homes.
Yeah, safety.
And that is the missing element we have right now.
Yeah.
We have no state oversight. We have no local oversight.
Right.
We have nobody that protects the individuals that are going into the homes. And that's 2/3 of the ordinance is right there designed to protect them, and that was our intent from the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all the comments, and I agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, it isn't a business. It's
No.
about people and human beings, and you can't calculate that one. Thank you, and we will take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
No,
Mayor Rep?
Yes. We'll move on to ordinance number 3.
Is an ordinance being given its first reading and is an ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning, Article 4 general and supplementary regulations, Section 52-677, parking and storage of recreational vehicles, campers, travel trailers, and boats of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances to allow front yard driveway parking from May 1st to October 31st.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Lamb.
Madam Mayor, the ordinance you have in front of you was to address just what kind of community we are. We're a boating community on the water, and a lot of our residents have boats between May and October that they take out of winter storage, and they take them out on the weekends, they take them out in the evenings, they go fishing, and then they drag them home and buff them, and then take them out the next week. And so, a lot of communities, they ban boats in the front yard, but realistically, in a waterfront, water-based economy, blue water economy, this is just identifying our unique ordinances for our unique circumstances in the city of Port Huron, and something that we've been working on for the last couple of months. And if you have any additional questions, David can answer them for you, but that's pretty much the gist of it, right?
Is there any questions, or did this go to the Planning Commission first? Did it go to the Planning Commission, or does it go? Yeah. And I just wonder what the outcome was there.
Good evening, Council. Yes, it did go before the Planning Commission, and they did recommend this to the Council for approval.
There are, I know, good regulations as far as what you can and can't do, so it's not going to have people with boats all over the place.
Exactly, and that was the concern, is recognizing what type of community we are, but at the same time trying to keep the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And the intent on this is to allow front driveway parking during the boating season, and then in the off-season, that would either be placed onto the side of the property or to the rear of the property, or it would be put into storage. The other change that is going to be coming forward is that we're limiting the number. You would be allowed one RV boat to be on the property, or 2 snowmobiles, quads. Other than that, and in particular when it's out of season, we would like to see them find outside other storage rather than on their own property. So we limited the number, and we also put it into a timing that it would be seasonal as far as when they can store the boats and RVs.
Any questions for Mr. Haynes? Yes, Councilmember Harris.
I didn't get any information back. I tried to research some information earlier today from our city assessor's office and through James and stuff, and we're in a community in a lot of areas in the city of Port Huron. We have 45-foot lots, 47-foot lots, and this type of thing. And I'm just trying to visualize if we have 25% of those people who put a 25-foot motorhome in one of these lots, that right now we're lucky to get a car and a second car in there. And I'm just kind of questioning what this is going to add to our community. I mean, my 25% is high, but even if we had 10% that move in a 30-foot trailer in a 47-foot lot that with a home built on it.
We had somebody put a full-size, had to be a 40-foot cruiser, and parked it next to their house, and it actually dwarfed the house. That's to your point. These lots are typically 50 by 100, and you throw a 38-foot RV or a cabin cruiser next to it, and it gets to be problematic.
I wish the ordinance, it looks okay except for that. I wish we'd have looked at that to see, what'll fit.
And that would have.
We don't have a.
No, we don't.
We have a one-size-fits-all, and it's not true.
And we actually thought about that, but then we thought that in order to verify, we would have to go onto private property and actually take a tape measure and measure each of the RVs, and we thought, we're not going to go that far.
So when we get to fire safety or things like that, access to our home in case of a fire and things like that, and if you have a 30-foot trailer in between 1519 and 1521 Miller Street, and the firemen can't get access to that, it's just, I guess there's just some issues that aren't answered, and I hope that we don't involve a situation where a tragedy happens because of something like this.
Well, as you know, the front of the house and the access to the hydrants, all of that is still available. If there's concern down the road, and we do run into these type of issues, much like the ordinance language that we've had tonight, and also the parking issue, And even this document has been one that has been going through various iterations, and as we see the need for change, we'll come back before you and make those recommendations.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mayor, one question. Example, they have their boat parked in their driveway, and now they don't have an area for their second car to park. Would it ever be allowed that they would be able to go on their front lawn?
No.
Just a question.
We certainly don't want that.
No front lawn parking.
Mayor Rep?
Councilmember Warden.
David, just a couple things. It's limiting to one camper, RV. If somebody has a pop-up camper and a boat, what are they doing with the other one? Are they sticking it in the backyard during this May through October, and only one allowed in the driveway?
No, it would be for the lot itself. If you have a boat and an RV, we would recommend that you find alternate storage, whether that is finding a business that has approved storage, outdoor storage, or indoor storage for those extra vehicles.
Or just campers? From May to October 31st, this is saying they can park in the front driveway, one. After that time frame, from November through, they have to park in the rear yard.
The rear
somewhere.
yard or the interior side yard.
And so they can keep it on their property, but they can only keep one.
Correct.
Or two of the smaller things, so.
Correct.
And did you guys have any feedback? I mean, this first, I just was wondering, it's kind of an interesting thing about, I see another thing about covers. You guys have crossed out that there's a campers, let's see about this. I just have a question on what was the little thing behind this covers, number 6, fitted covers. So fitted covers can be placed on over RVs or provided the cover does not become loose. Tarps or unfitted covers shall not be placed over an RV when stored in the driveway from May to October. No cover of any kind can be placed over a motorhome or travel trailer. And it used to be that fitted covers could be placed, what has been deleted, can be placed over RVs provided the cover does not become loose. Tarps or So I guess what was the do people put covers on that stuff that now they're not allowed to put covers on it?
During the summer months, when it was felt that the RVs would be in use, that just on the aesthetics of the neighborhood, in fact, that was an issue, a very issue that was brought up during the Planning Commission, is that one of the planning commissioners felt that aesthetically he didn't appreciate having the covered RV during the summer months. And so that very point was made.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys thinking about all this stuff and tweaking it as you go. I'm sure the people in the public will appreciate being able to park their boat in the front of your driveway, not be in violation. It's a good change, at least during the summer, so thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. That concludes our agenda. We have, I have a couple of announcements. The annual Capture Cops and Jocks Spaghetti Dinner is tomorrow night from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Seaway Terminal, so make sure you go. Leaf pickup at the curb begins the week of October the 30th. The program is the same as last year, using a 2-zone alternating week pickup process. A newsletter with more details will be mailed to all city residents, so you will get one in the mail. If you don't, please contact the Department of Public Works, 984-9730. Is there anything else to come before the council?
Mayor Rep, just had one announcement for the local community. I thought it was pretty cool. Port Huron High School, Big Reds, they had a 150-year homecoming, kind of a nice special weekend there, and their homecoming, their football team actually came home with a victory as well. And Port Huron Northern, another Port Huron school, played crosstown rival Marysville, hard-fought battle, and actually came out victorious as well. Both teams played very hard. So I just thought it was pretty cool for a football weekend and having that 150-year celebration of the Port Huron High School.
Thank you. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Meeting adjourned.